within in what else can we look at in the estate to help us improve how we deliver match day selling of food, beverage, and but also the retail opportunity as well. Can we be doing retail in another part of the site to take the pressure off the shop on a busy match day?
Brilliant. Thank you, Pete. And Nick, what would you like to bring to the match day experience to take Exeter City to the next level?
Well, I think, well, Pete's touched on some of it, but I think one of the biggest gripes we get is that costs. You can go down the road and pay less. We want to make that it's not just about 90 minutes or so. It's trying to get people there into the ground before the game and to stay after the game for an hour or so. And it's developing it at the moment. People tolerate, I think, is probably the word, the queues and all that. Red Square development will help, but I also think we need to actually engage with our fans and see what they actually want. I mean, they're all going to want a drink, they want some food before they go. What do you want afterwards? Do we put something entertainment on for an hour afterwards? I think we got an opportunity with Old Tiverton Road, the centre spot, to enhance that environment now, because we're on the verge of owning it. We've got to try and get people into the ground before and keep them there after the game to make sure that, well, as we say, we don't want to fleece people. We want to make sure they get value for their money and want to go to St James's Park before and want to stay after the game, not just disappear. So I think there's a pricing thing. There's what we offer people and whether we offer things afterwards as well. And of course, there's a wider thing about what we do with the ground on the every other week we don't use it on a Saturday. What can we use? So I think it's trying to get people in there and make them come on the Saturday. Yeah, that's it. I'll shut up now.
Thank you, Nick. Josh.
Yeah.
First thing to say is I like the fact that St James's Park is not some perfect, modern stadium that has its quirks, that it's not perfectly straight, that, there's these odd little corners that don't quite make sense. But obviously that leads to challenges when trying to do something, which should be as simple as, serving teas and coffees and not having huge queues. I think a lot of progress has been made over the past couple of years. Certainly ticketing wise, we've moved to a new system. But yeah, the match day food does, continue to be a gripe. I'm sure everyone that is involved is looking at it, but I'm sure there's sort of maybe some creative ways that we can get around some of the, logistical challenges. And following on from what you've said there, Nick, I think football clubs in general are trying to move towards, the football experience not just being the 90 minutes. Getting in people before is historically been slightly easier. It's sort of keeping them there afterwards. Obviously, we have the centre spot. We have sort of have games on, showing in there after. But it feels like there is an opportunity there, hopefully, to sort of make it more of a day out, to attract younger fans there before the game and just sort of making it more of like more than just the 90 minutes.
Brilliant. Thank you, Josh and Julen.
I think a bit, as Josh alluded to it ever so slightly, in that in order to take the fan experience to the very next level, the reality is you would probably have to build a new ground that's designed around and tailored to all of the needs of all the different fan demographics. But I mean, that's not realistic in any way, shape or form in the near future. So in the meantime, what we need to do is, when finances allow it, is we need to make major changes, such as the fan zone that will hopefully be going in the next few months, fingers crossed. And I know, for example, that's made a big impact on why a certain team down the road were so successful in their fan experience awards. And we need to go and look at other clubs to find the best practices that they're doing so that we invest heavily in what works at other clubs and how we can implement that at St James Park. But in the meantime and in between those projects, what we need to continue doing is minor continual changes. And that comes through supporter feedback. It comes through things such as the supporter roundtable, and it's fed into the support experience committee. And that is really important, that continual feedback. But I know that's not necessarily open to everyone. Not everyone can necessarily get to a roundtable, etc. So we need to make it as easy as possible for fans to be able to provide even more feedback and feel comfortable providing feedback, and then being able to implement those changes so people feel like they're being listened to.
Brilliant. Thank you, Julen. And Latoyah, what would you change to the match day experience to take Exeter City to the next level?
So, as others have mentioned, I think that taking fan feedback on board is something that's really important. I think Exeter City do this well. They obviously do really well in the surveys for fan engagement. I know that trustees have been involved in that previously, but the growing attendance that we have, I think, really highlights the importance of streamlining your match day experience, whether that's queuing up for a drink, queuing up for food, or finding your seat in the stadium. Football's obviously ultimately a leisure activity that people want to enjoy. So I think that's something that's really important. And another thing I think is to encourage fans to kind of be there pre or post match. I think a lot more could be done perhaps with post match in the centre spot, whether that's showing any football that's on in the evening or live music, things like that, things that would encourage people to stay around a bit longer. And the same with pre-match as well. I think pre-match build-up is something that can really build the match into an occasion. One thing I always remember when I first went on the Big Bank was the atmosphere. So I think kind of perhaps maybe some fan engagement before the match and music and things like that can really help to build that atmosphere and appeal to fans of all ages. But ultimately, we want people to.
Sorry.
Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you, Latoyah. So that was our match day experience. This next question was probably sent in before this week when we've lost 2 out of 2. But the next question is, you'd like to ask each candidate if they think promotion to the Championship is a realistic aim for the football club. And if so, how do they believe the trust can support the club in achieving that goal? We'll begin with Nick Edwards.
Well, of course it is. It's a realistic aim. We wouldn't be here otherwise. We all would love it, I think. But it's got to be realistic. And I think the big thing is we've got to, as a trust, we've increased the playing budget in the last 3 years. We're still at the bottom end of the table of playing budgets. We've got to be mindful of what happened 20 years ago. That's always in the back of my mind. So what we do is sustainable, but there is opportunities there. You know, we have income, and I'd like to see the income from some of the income from transfers spent on the infrastructure. We need a bigger ground, but it needs to be St James's Park, in my opinion. I think the trust should support that in the decision making. I think it needs the governance of the trust to say we're not going to do it at all costs, but it should be an aim. I mean, before the last 2 games, we were in the playoff positions. You know, it's achievable. It's certainly achievable, and I think it's realistic. But it's got to be sustainable, and it's got to be sensible, and it's got to be not take us back 20 years where we were before. We've seen what's happened up the road, 50 miles away in Yeovil, where they are. I'm not saying that would happen to us, but it could. And I think that's the biggest concern that I've got, is that what we do is sustainable, and it doesn't take us backwards. You know, 1 season in the Championship would be great, but if it causes us problems, it wouldn't be too good. So yes, of course, it's a realistic aim, and we should support.
Just timed on a minute.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. Next is Josh.
Promotion is possible. I would say it's probably unlikely, but you never know. I think what is probably not realistic is being able to maintain Championship accreditation for a couple of years. You know, there are some seriously, you know, big spending teams in that league, and I think it would be pretty hard to compete. But even for a season, it would be good fun, if nothing else. But yeah, you'd have to ensure that, you know, as Nick was saying, it's done on a sustainable level. Nick also talked about what happened 20 years ago, but, you know, even more recent than that, our last foray into League One, when, you know, we made a bit of an effort to try and get up, and then we ended up paying the cost for it and going down the next season and running into a bit of financial difficulty. So, but what I would say since then, you know, Exeter it's a growing city. There's, you know, it's ever more money coming into it, and I like to think that, you know, we're improving. The trust has a role in this. In terms of continuing to give the club a good name, ensuring attendance is maintained, and, you know, ensuring corporate support as well continues. So there's certainly stuff that trust can do alongside the club and ultimately the team on the pitch.
Thank you, Josh. So the question is, if they think promotion to the Championship is a realistic aim for the football club, and if so, how do they believe that trust can support the club in achieving that goal? Next is Julen.
I think it depends on which championship you're on about. For the men's EFL Championship, I think it is realistic in the long term. It's going to require a lot of a considerable amount of patience. It's going to need continual good strategy, and it's going to need a large slice of luck and everything lining up for us. But before we even talk about the championship, we have to walk before we can run. Sorry, not the other way around. We don't need to just be a League One team, which we are now. We need to be a League One club, and we need to make those gradual steps to becoming a League One club. So in the last year, we've made huge strides with the backroom staff at the Cliff-Hill, which is now second to none in this division, and that gives us a big advantage. But we have to continue doing things like that, where we make incremental changes that put us in the best place. When everything does line up, we have a proper go at the championship. If we're talking about the women's championship, with the way that the women's team has started, it's entirely conceivable that with further investment and more professionalization, that a promotion tilt is more than possible. And what's the trust role in this? Well, it needs to continue to grow its membership, and it needs to increase its contributions to the club so that they can give it the most resources it possibly can. And then it also needs to continue to ensure there's good governance that underpins the strategy going forward.
Thank you, Julen. Latoyah, Egerton.
So while I think that promotion to the championship is a challenging goal, I do think it's something that is realistic, and that is where the trust comes in. And I think the right strategy and support is really, really important. It's all well and good getting to the championship, but it's sustaining that level without kind of getting us back into the same difficulties. And as Julen mentioned, we've got two teams, and they're both in the same league. So I think promotion to the championship is possible for both of them. But of course, it's really, really important to focus on the strategy and the support that the trust can give to ensure that it's a sustainable future for both sides, both teams in the club.
Thank you, Latoyah. And Pete.
Yeah, of course, it's realistic, but it's not at any cost at all costs. We have to do it the Exeter way. And if it takes us an extra season or two to get there, then so be it. As other people have said, we can't crash and burn. And if I was a trustee, I wouldn't want that. It's not at all costs. We're not a Wrexham, we're not a Chelsea. We can't throw money at it. We have to be thoughtful, careful, and carefully plan this. So I believe we have the talent, both on and off the field, a manager and his backroom staff, and the senior management team at SJP, who can control and manage how we get there. I'd also like to start have a discussion with my fellow owners, 4,200 of them, how we can actually help increase the donation that the trust gives to the club. So that would help then reflect in increasing the player budget. So I think we need to have discussions as owners of how we can increase that contribution. At the moment, we're contributing 100,000 a year to the club. How could we get that up to 500,000? If we got it up to 500,000, then we can help the club seriously. Lots of conversations, not going to happen overnight. Not as easy as I'm saying it's going to be, but I think we've done great the last 20 years. We now need to reflect and acknowledge the past, but then let's move forward.
Thank you, Pete. That's a minute.
Thank you, Pete. And that's the end of question 3. Question 4 now is a bit more contextual and something that's coming this season. What is your opinion of Sky Sports now moving some of the fixtures in date or time, or both, without regards to spectators that actually attend to the games? Beginning this question is Josh.
Yes, this is something actually I referenced in my manifesto. It's not something I'm particularly a fan of, I think it's fair to say, and I think it's a challenge. It's the first season, so it's hard to make direct comparisons, but so far it does look like that attendances are down. What I think is particularly disappointing, part of the changes involves moving to early kickoffs, and this disproportionately affects the younger fan base. Anyone that plays youth football won't then be able to go on to attend the game. There's also more moves to midweek games, not necessarily because of Sky Sports, but because of the increase in international breaks. Again, this will affect the younger fan base. So I think from what I've heard from people, it's just everyone's sort of struggling to get into the routine. One of the benefits of supporting a lower league team is, primarily it's Saturday, 3:00, or it's Tuesday. But, so far it's, 12:30 on a Saturday, 5:30 on a Saturday, 7:45 on a Thursday. And it just makes it quite hard. Obviously, as a trust, we can't exactly stand up to Murdoch and start making, radical changes like that. But I think we can certainly feed back, and hopefully other clubs will as well, if it's affecting the fan base, if numbers are down and that's not being offset by any extra money from Sky, then it can potentially lead to a longer term problem.
Thank you, Josh. Julen.
I think it's always with the television and football and television, match going fans come last on the list of priorities. I think the current situation is symptomatic of the poor financial management of football in general. Clubs get into precarious positions. They then get bailed out by TV deals or Premier League deals that end up being detrimental to fans. And then the process just repeats 5 years later when everything goes down the pan again. We know that TV scheduling has impacted our attendances and it's affecting season ticket holders' ability to go to matches. And I think the club will now have to put in mitigating methods of mitigating that. So whether that be through extending the flexi ticket that's come out for young people into all audiences and for different lengths of matches potentially, and then also in terms of allowing season ticket holders to sell their tickets back to the club so that they don't feel like they've been left out of pocket. We have to adapt to this new reality of TV, football on TV. I'm afraid I don't think that's going to change anytime soon unless there's any major changes in football as a whole. We just need to sort of make it as smooth as possible for all of our fans.
Thank you, Julen. Latoyah.
I think the decision from Sky Sports is really frustrating and is obviously detrimental to the matchday experience. I mean, getting home at 3 o'clock in the morning on a weekday because you've travelled away to see the team isn't that fun. But excuse me, while the decisions are ultimately outside of our control, I think it's really important for the trust to continue to advocate for fans and interests and make sure that they're providing the feedback through the appropriate channels, to liaise with the EFL and its representatives to ensure that fixture changes have a little bit more of the fans in mind. As others have mentioned, we've seen a smaller crowd on some of the matches that have been on television. So I think it's something that we really need to kind of investigate to see if there's any short-term solutions that we can provide from a club, and to work as best we can to provide feedback of what's happening to the club to kind of hopefully change this. Obviously, it's a new thing, so there's always room for improvement.
Thank you, Latoyah. We're asking the candidates their opinions on Sky Sports now moving some of the fixtures in date or time without regard to spectators that actually attend the games. Next to answer the question is Pete Ferlie.
It's absolutely rubbish. As somebody said, fans have been almost forgotten by the TV companies. It's they're the sort of lowest down on the thought process of who's going to be affected. We need to lobby EFL. We need to lobby whoever we can lobby to say this is not good. It's going to affect clubs. We are in a very strong financial position because of good management, but some of the clubs, it could really seriously affect them and they could go under. I don't think that's an exaggeration. We do need now to sort of review how it's affecting us and how can we mitigate this loss. As said, I think it was Julen, look at flexi tickets, look at how we are managing the season ticket holders, so we can be seen to be helping the fans out. We're just not throwing our hands up in the air and saying, well, it's not our fault, we can't do anything about it. I think we have to think carefully now how it's going to affect us and our fans, and what we can make the best out of this. That we can benefit from this somehow in terms of helping the fans understand what's going on and supporting them and making sure that they understand that we will do their best to get them to a match, or we can't because of through no fault of their own, they can sell the ticket back to the club and we can put that revenue to good use in the club.
Thank you, Pete. And Nick.
Yeah, it's probably an effect of the football financial management in general, isn't it? And people, they see a carrot being dangled and they take it. We're quite down the list, aren't we? Really, but at the last financial time, the only club in the EFL one was us that were in profit, and that was only by a small amount. So I guess that if you see money being dangled, you get it, and arguably, if it's the fan numbers, certainly away games, and I always go away. I like the experience, but it's getting there, getting back at times. I think we can make a make a good job of a bad job. We could offer away games in the centre spot for a small fee or something. I do think we should be giving flexibility or cheaper tickets away, or season tickets being bought back on certain occasions if people can't do it, but also making it, if it is an away game, can we do anything at home? I mean, we were at Shrewsbury the other week, and if you got back at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, but if you could watch it in the centre spot, could we make some money out of it? Actually make some money on top of the Sky money, some income of consequential income. So I think there is an opportunity there. It's probably an opportunity we wouldn't have necessarily wanted, but we've also got to see the effect after season one. We don't know the actual effect yet. We're only sort of a tiny way into the season,
Nick,
aren't we?
That's the minute.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you, Nick. The next question: having contacted the trust on 2 occasions and not having received an acknowledgement or reply, what would you like to do to improve communications in the trust? I believe we're beginning with Julen.
Yes, I can certainly understand the frustration of this particular member, and I'm happy to shoulder my fair share of the blame on that. I think in an attempt to improve our digital communications, we've ended up spreading ourselves too thin, trying to do too many things and ended up not doing them necessarily well, rather than focusing on just a few things and communicating properly with people. And so there's 2 things I would like to do. The first, which is I'll make sure goes into the trust communications plan for the upcoming strategy, is streamlining communications. So making it as simple as possible and as clear as possible for members to know exactly who needs to be communicated, how they need to be communicated for each different topic that they might need to communicate or ask questions about, and I'll make sure that goes into the plan. And the second is something I probably would like to see and something I've advocated for a while now, which is more professionalism. So my day-to-day job is communications, and it's a full-time job. And I think that we're getting to the point where with the trust, it's the same. If we want to effectively communicate with people, with our members, the way that it's befitting to them and in a consistent manner, but collaborates it daily with the football club, then I think the trust needs to consider a full-time communications officer. And that's I think how I think we can do it.
Thank you, Julen. Latoyah.
So I think effective communication is so important within the trust, just to make sure that members are feeling valued, because of course they are owners of the club. So I think there's potential to implement a few key strategies when it comes to ensuring effective communication. So as Julen kind of touched upon, I think streamlining the process of who to contact. I had a look on the website, and there's quite a lot of different options and email addresses, which can potentially be quite overwhelming for people when they're just trying to find someone to contact. I think also it's really important to ensure that all inquiries are responded to within a really timely manner. So maybe set goals for how quickly an email should receive a response, even if the answer is not immediately available, just a holding email. And I think we could make better use of the membership portal as well as another method of contact. And then using that, people can perhaps answer questions directly on there, so other people can see the answers without having to need contact. But open and transparent communication is so important. So I think that's something that, with my background as well, I could potentially contribute to if I get elected.
Thank you, Latoyah. Pete Ferlie.
I think that now we're growing. I mean, we're over 4,000. We're nearly approaching. I know I said 4,200. We're nearly getting to 4,300. We're getting big now, and we do need now to invest hours into the communication, because we're talking about growing the membership, growing the contribution to the club, and just general improving how we do things. And that, as Julen has said, we now need paid hours on that to make sure that we get it right. It's not right that people aren't getting replies, and that's not good enough. And we need to strip back the system, look at it, review it, come up with a new policy, come up with a new system, and crack on and improve how we do it. It's that simple. We have to put our hands up and say it's not good enough. This is what we're going to do to improve it.
Thanks, Pete. Nick.
Yeah, I think we've got to acknowledge that every question and every answer that's required is important to the person that's asked it. I think we sometimes forget that it's important to that person. I agree the trust is growing. We are aiming to grow even further, and I think there's scope within current employees, whether there's some scope to make it a mailbox or something, or where we at least we can get a holding email out initially, and then because it is important to those people. It's frustrating. I mean, we also mustn't forget we've got other people that don't use emails and don't use portals and things like that. So we need to still acknowledge there's a demographics of our trust that needs to be. And I think there's one or two people said to me, that it's all online, and it makes it harder. I think sometimes a phone call might help at times if people find that. I think but it does we need to be open, we need to be honest, we need to be transparent, and I think that's some of the things, because with online, it's a paradox, but people make their own answers up, don't they? If they don't get the answer from the person they want, it becomes their mountain at some molehill perhaps, but it's not. It should be responded to in the appropriate manner. So I totally agree with what everybody else has said, really. But I think we have, without spending money. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick. The question is, having contacted the trust on a couple of occasions and not receiving an acknowledgement or reply, what would you do to improve communication with trust members? The final person to answer is Josh.
This is something that I think's come up before. People have mentioned to me, and even in terms of this hustings, some people have said that the communication around it's not been particularly clear. So, I mean, yeah, Nick's just obviously said that, not everyone has access to email or, to the internet in general, I guess. But I sort of work slightly within this field, and I do find that obviously most people do. So if we're able to communicate messages via social media and via those forms, it does go out to a lot of people, and that should hopefully reduce the amount of incoming sort of emails and phone calls that take more hours to respond to. So I think the key is having a good digital communications plan. Looks like work sort of is ongoing in that, and changes are happening. If there's a solid base of that, and then like a central point for any inquiries, and someone that's there, hopefully, like we say, we're growing, hopefully a paid position that we're able to employ someone to do that, then it should be within the realms of possibility to get back to everyone with a timely manner. Yeah.
Thank you, Josh. The final of the set questions is coming up. At a trust board meeting, you realise that the majority of trustees are minded to make a decision clearly against written trust policy. What would you do and why? This goes back to the top, so it goes back to Latoyah.
So I believe that it's really imperative to the trust success that everyone within it works with integrity and honesty. So if I were to find myself in a situation where the majority of trustees were considering a decision that conflicted with the trust policy, in the first instance, I would raise my concerns, seek clarification, and potentially propose alternative solutions. And if necessary, I'd have to escalate the issue to a higher authority to uphold the trust principles. I think that I personally would strive to maintain integrity and everything that I can within the trust and its policies, because ultimately this safeguards the interest of the members and the community that it serves to.
Thank you, Latoyah. Pete.
You speak up. I mean, and it has been done at trust board meetings. People do speak up, and we do refer to the policy, and we will then have a discussion and debate about whatever that situation is. It has been known that we will then put it to one side. We all have a good read of the policy, have a good understanding of the policy, and then we will have another debate about it. But the important thing is that you just don't railroad it through. You do acknowledge the rules and policies of the trust, and you work to them. And we have to, we're just as accountable as anybody else. So yeah, speak up, refer, reflect, and then move on.
Thank you, Pete. Nick.
Yeah, of course. You would. I mean, I personally would have make a point and wouldn't go along with it just for the sake of it. As majority, you stand up. You got three options. You can vote for, against, or abstain. I certainly wouldn't abstain. I would make my position quite clear. I think you'd have to probably question as part of the debate is why we've gone against the policy. Is the policy fit for purpose? They should be reviewed every 12 months. If it's a major constitutional change, it should be down to the members as well to comment on this at an AGM or an EGM. I would question why the board has gone against it or needed to go against it, because there's clearly something amiss. But personally, I would stand up and say, well, it's not me. I mean, it doesn't make any difference, but it's recorded. But I think we would need to review. We need to look at policies, and as the trust grows and as the trust moves on, we need to make sure the policies are actually fit for purpose. So that's not the things were 20 years ago need to be reviewed. So that's the where I would come from on this is to make sure A, it's fit for purpose, and B, it wouldn't be railroaded through by me.
Thank you, Nick. We're midway through this final question, so we'd like to open up the chat for members to put in their questions for the next stage of the thing. But the question that we're answering at the moment, at a trust board meeting, you realised that the majority of trustees are minded to make a decision clearly against written trust policy. What would you do and why? Next to answer is Josh Curtis-Hale.
I mean, when I first had this question, my initial reaction is I was sort of hoping it was a hypothetical question and not something that's come up in the past. Obviously, I think that trust policy should be followed. However, I would be very interested to know why a majority of the trustees felt otherwise. Again, hypothetically speaking, I imagine it's a case of a different interpretation of a policy rather than just a blatant ignoring of it. But yeah, like others have said, it's just a case, isn't it, of making sure the policies are updated, making sure that everything as it should be, but also having, personal integrity, not being afraid to stand up, making your voice count. And yeah, I certainly won't be afraid to do so.
Thank you, Josh. And Julen.
Yeah, my position as a trustee has always been to follow trust policy or any legal advice that has been born from those trust policies. And what would I do in this scenario? Well, it happened a few years ago where the trust almost went through with a decision that actually went against the club trust agreement. And I called it out there and then so that we could actually correct our course and ensure that we were actually following our policies. And that's what I'd continue to do going forward. I'd just say that was not knowingly going to breach the CTA, just accidentally. But it's important that all trustees know what the policies are as well.
Thank you, Julen. A question from me, if that's not so rude. So all of our candidates are applying to join the trust board. What specific working group would you like to join and why? And we'll start again from Peter Ferlie.
Well, I'm on the community working group, and I would like to stay with the community working group. My working life is based around working in the community, so I know what it takes to develop links, strengthen links, and work with people in the community to develop relationships. We have a big influence on the city of Exeter and its surrounding area, so we need to have good links with our community because we do affect them 26 days a year quite significantly in Exeter. So let's be good neighbours, let's be good people, and let's remember, don't forget that we are a company for community benefit. So let's use the power of football to help our community, and by helping the community, they can help us in terms of getting extra fans. I know extra fans have come on board, have joined us because of the work that the Supporters Trust, Community Trust, and the club do in the community. So we can help each other, and we can all benefit from that work together. We are a community club, so let's rally around the community, because they will rally around us like they have done for the last 20 years. We shouldn't forget that. They are very important to us.
Thank you, Pete. Nick.
Well, I currently chair the Trust Finance Group and sit on the club trust governance and finance group. The reason for that is because I think unless we're not sustainable, we cannot do anything else. It's all about, and it is a fear of going back 20 years and maybe 10 years as well. I think it's really important that we manage it. All of the trust money is income from our members, their owners. We need to be prudent. We need to be also careful with money. I mean, it's your money we're looking after, and I think without the good financial prudence, we cannot function. You know, it's a bigger problem having money as having no money actually. But and also the governance we sit on there is keeps an eye on the running of the club. We employ people to run the club, but we must ensure that we are the owners. So the two I sit on, I would like to get back onto them: the chair of the trust finance group and the finance and governance group.
Thank you, Nick. We're talking about working group on the trust board and what the candidates want to join and why. Next to answer is Josh.
Yeah, so my background mostly, so I sort of studied sports marketing at university, and since then I've sort of worked slightly in local politics, and then for the past 9 years in program management. So I think one that's most closely aligned to my set would be the communications working group. Like to think that I could add something, and as has been discussed on this call, I think there is, certainly some potential to make some positive changes. So yeah, I think that would be the one I'd be most interested in joining.
Thank you, Josh. Julen.
So I currently sit on 2 groups. I sit on the the communication engagement working group, as I've alluded to previously, but then I also sit on the community group, but that is partly due to my remit on the club board, which is leading the club's community separately. And those are the 2 areas I continue to work in. The community side of it is because my remit on the club board is to decide and implement the club's charitable and community aims going forward, and then managing and collaborating with CCT and any other organisation that can help us deliver those community aims.
Thank you, Julen. And Latoyah.
So I think my skills would be really beneficial on the communications group. I have vast experience within communications. My current career is predominantly based on social media. I've created social media strategies for large multinational brands. And in a previous role, I was actually a communications analyst. So I had to monitor and analyze all forms of communications, written, verbal. So I think that my skills would really help to get the communication better within the trust, and also promote the trust to a wider range online and improve and build upon their current social media strategies.
Brilliant. Thank you, Latoyah. We have a couple of questions in the chat. We'll start with Tony's first. How would candidates suggest we can promote the community-owned difference of Exeter City being a unique football club to a wider audience? We will start with Nick on this one.
This is a very good question, actually, because it's one of the things we've been discussing. Is we're quite well known within the UK or in the English Football League, but I think we need to go wider. We need to look at different clubs, different sports somewhere where we've got that thing. But in terms of the question, I think it needs to be. And I will hand over to communications. I'm sort of passing the buck here, but I think the people that know about us probably know about us from a long time ago. It's current question. It's current people now who use social media. They use the internet and things like that. There's a whole way of getting to different people out there. I think that's that, and selling that difference, about what we can share about finance and things like that, and the sustainability about it, but also the community benefits of how we fit into the city. But I think we need a different platform to do it on.
Thank you, Nick. How would candidates suggest we promote the community-owned difference of Exeter City being a unique football club to a wider audience? Josh.
So funny enough, I did my dissertation on something quite similar, actually using Exeter City as a case study, and I sort of looked at target marketing and how what Exeter were doing and lower league clubs in general to target fans. And the main thing that I took away from my research, which I was sort of quite surprised about at the time, was that how many people that didn't really have much interest in football were still quite attracted to Exeter City because of the community nature of it. There's a lot of goodwill out there, and there's lots that I think can be done to maybe attract those people, those that maybe aren't massive football fans overall, but sort of interested in that side of things. I think that's where there's potentially as well overlap with the women's team. Again, slightly different fan base, but yeah, I think there's certainly more that can be done. New markets to target.
Thank you, Josh. You then?
So I'm very fortunate in that I've grown up in two cities where we have fan-owned red and white football teams. So I grew up in Bilbao, which is also fan-owned, and whilst there are political reasons as well, a huge reason why they are so loved by the entire community. Everyone around here is an Athletic fan, whether they like football or they hate it. But their team is still Athletic Club, Athletic Bilbao. And a huge part of that is the sheer outreach of what the club gives back to the community. It runs or helps with a load of community initiatives, and it gives back to the community that gives it so much, and from where all of its ownership comes from. And I think in certain part, that's something I'd like to try and emulate when in my community subcommittee in the long term, those that create that sense of pride in Exeter City and within Exeter and Greater Exeter. There's a saying that goes, the stronger the trust, the stronger the club. And I think the same goes for the stronger Exeter as a city is, the stronger Exeter City is. And I think that's where we need to focus our efforts.
Thank you, Julen. Latoyah?
I think the community aspect of Exeter City runs so much deeper than football. And I think it's something that could potentially appeal to people who may not necessarily enjoy attending football matches. And I think that's kind of an area that we could really focus on promoting that to those people, the community aspect, and kind of showcasing what the club can do. And I personally believe that football is so much more than 90 minutes played on a pitch. I think being involved with the football club, being a part of the football club and attending regularly has so many benefits other than just watching football. So in terms of promoting that to a wider audience, I think it's something that we could really focus on social media wise, to promote that and kind of target people that may not be necessarily interested in the football first and foremost.
Thank you, Latoyah. Pete?
I think we need to look at the positives of what a football club in Exeter actually delivers to the city. I'm sure there's some clever people out there who could work out the cash benefit to the city of having a professional football team in the city, the amount of money that just the employees put into the city would be I imagine quite a high figure. I think we need to be really shouting about the fabulous work that the City Community Trust does in the city and the area. They just do so many sessions, work with so many people, so integrate that into the story. And I think we just need to, because the last 20 years we've been struggling. We're not struggling now, but we've been struggling to stay solvent, stay in the leagues. But now we are there. We've got a solid base. We can now start to tell the story of what we're about, how we've done it, what we do, what we want to achieve, and what the good a football club can bring to the city. A lot of people don't think football can bring good, but we know it can. So we need to be proud of telling people what we've done, how we've done it, and who we are helping, and what our plans are for the future. We've got the community foundation that we set up last year. How much good is that doing for the 6 charities involved in that? And we're giving minor charities some good platforms to raise their awareness, raise their issues. So we need to be looking at all of that and the benefits of what the football is doing in terms of the men's team and the women's team as well. So we need to just now to sort of reflect on where we've been, come up with a great story, and then go out and sell it.
Thank you, Pete. And Nick, have you answered this one? You have.
I had.
No.
Yeah.
Yes, you have. Fantastic. Yeah, that's brilliant. It's all merging into one now. Brilliant. Tony, thank you ever so much for your question. We really appreciate you joining the call today. And talking about joining the call today, the next question comes from Mike Summers. He says, the figure of 4,200 trust members has been raised tonight, but yet there are barely 20 trust members on this call. At last week's monthly trust meeting, there were 4 or 5 member attendees. What do you think is a barrier to trust member engagement, and what do you want to do to mitigate this and increase trust member attendance, interaction and interest? Beginning with Josh.
Yes, yeah, 4,200 is a high figure. It's a very impressive figure. I would imagine, without knowing the specifics, that quite a few people are happy to pay £2 a month. Not primarily, but partly to have priority status and to give a bit into the club, but don't want to be particularly any more involved with that. I don't think anyone's expecting 4,200 people on the call, but I think we need to sort of be realistic that a lot of people are just not going to be that involved. That said, there's a lot more that can be done. 20 is a pretty low figure, especially when we look at the amount of people that have voted in years gone by. You'd hope that, you know, quite a few people of those voting have had all the opportunity to see what the candidates are saying and see what they're hoping to implement. I think, as has been mentioned quite a lot over this call, communication is an area that I think can definitely be improved. There's much more that can be done around this. Part of the question was talking about the last trust meeting. I must admit, I haven't attended one of these before. I don't know when they are. I mean, that could be partly down to me not looking in the right places, but if people aren't aware of something happening, then obviously they can't be involved.
Josh, Julen.
Yeah, I think with all due respect, trust board meetings aren't necessarily the most entertaining or interesting things to listen about. And there's probably better ways that most people would like to spend their lives. Ultimately, it's difficult because a lot of what the trust can, and a lot of these meetings, such as this one tonight, they're not the most interesting things in the world, with all due respect to the rest of the candidates, but I'm mostly speaking about myself and the way I drone on. But then there's also the accessibility, so it might not be the easiest day of the week to be able to get onto it. I think the biggest thing is that what do the membership want? I think we need to be better at understanding exactly what the membership want in terms of engagement and how that works for different demographics within the membership. I think it is something that we're looking at in the strategy, but then being able to then implement that might be easier or more challenging. In terms of like what Josh has said, it's like, well, you can attend something you don't necessarily know is happening, but then it is on the trust website when trust board meetings are. I can't make people go onto the website to find when the next meeting is, and because people just aren't as interested. I don't think I'm not speaking for all fans, of course, and for all members, but for a lot of people, it just won't be what is interesting, and most people will engage at more challenging times, such as last year when we weren't doing so well. More people become engaged because suddenly there's something at stake. When everything is going well, it's even more challenging to engage with people because people are happy. So I think, yeah, the main thing we need to do is go to the membership itself to find out what they want to engage with. And that's how we will increase engagement and how we'll have more than 20 people on the Hustings.
Thank you, Julen. We are discussing Mike Summers' question about numbers and attendance of trust board meetings and this Hustings, for example. Latoyah, what do you think is a barrier to trust member engagement, and what do you want to do to mitigate this and increase trust member attendance, interaction and interest?
So I think, as others have mentioned, there will be a selection of people who are just happy to pay their £2 a month. They don't kind of want to get involved in the other side of things. But I think for the rest, the two main barriers that we have would be understanding exactly what's discussed in these meetings. I know it's kind of put on social media, but sometimes it can just be overwhelming when you hear a meeting and you don't necessarily understand what's being discussed, why it's important, what it's about, and why you can go and be involved. And also accessibility. I think making it so as many people as possible can attend these meetings. obviously offering the Zoom option that they do and things like that. So I think improvements can be done to kind of communicate to people exactly what's discussed in these meetings, why it's beneficial as someone that is an owner of the football club to attend, and just how you can learn about the day-to-day running of your football club.
Thank you, Latoyah. Pete.
Yeah, as I said, improve the communication. You let people know in advance, 2 or 3 months in advance when the dates of the meeting are. So if they are interested, they can come along. They might miss one because of a holiday or a business commitment, but let people know a bit more in advance of when the dates are. People are most welcome to come along and attend part of the meeting, either virtually or in person. And we want to encourage that. People need to know that they are welcome to come along and see what's debated, what's said. Perhaps we haven't been very good at saying that ourselves. So, we need to look at that, maybe how we can improve how we say that people are welcome, and that is genuine. We do want people to be involved because they are joint owners. Their voice is very important to us, and we need to know what they're thinking and say to help us guide the club in the right direction, because we might be thinking one thing and they're going to be thinking something else. And so that's, they come along, they can tell us, and we can reflect on what we're being told. So yeah, we maybe need to look at how we can do things a bit better ourselves. But people shouldn't be frightened or intimidated or also meeting. Come along, find out for yourself.
Thank you, Pete and Nick.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, communication is one of the big things. We know the dates of the meetings. We could put them out at the beginning of the year. They may change because of club board meetings and things like that. I think better, match days before, whether it's the week before or the weekend before, we can things there. But there are a number of people who are quite happy just to go along, pay the £2 for priority. I get that, I think when we did the Hustings in person 3 years ago, we had about 20, 30 people. So it didn't improve because it was in person. So I think the medium is almost academic. I think it's got to be accessibility and making people know and actually telling them. Maybe there's a way of telling people what the meetings are about without going through all the minutes and everything, like a quick. But it goes back to communications. Can we do a quick 5 minute what meetings are about, what your involvement could be, what you can do and what you can say. But it is a bit disappointing that we don't get. I'm not expecting 4,200 people, but we could. If we didn't get 4,000, we got 200, it would be good. It's always going to be the nature of the beast. But I think we've got to communicate it better, and that it's not a intimidating affair. And you can raise things. You own it. You're the owners as well as we are, aren't they?
Thank you, Nick. Before we wrap up tonight's Trust Board meetings, that's the last of the questions that we've got. We'd like to go through the candidates' manifestos, and we're just going to change up the rules a little bit for this last one. So each candidate has 2 minutes each to go through their manifesto and make their final pledge to the members. And it's worked out quite nicely that all of our candidates will have now started first. So to kick off the 2 minutes each, it's Julen.
Sorry, Jed, I didn't quite catch that. Could you repeat that? Sorry, it's quite loud in here.
So we're going to go through the manifestos. Each candidate has 2 minutes each to wrap up and make their final pledge to the members. Starting with you, Julen.
Thanks, Jed. I've been going to Egerton City for as long as I can remember. I can blame my dad for that one, for dragging me along and cursing me for the rest of my life with that affliction. But yeah, I've gone to both men's and women's games for as long as I can remember. What I bring to the sports trust and to the football club is my experience in sport in general. So I qualified, have a master's degree in international sports management for the university from UCFB, and attached to that was a diploma in sports management from Real Madrid. As part of that, I was also selected as one of the next 25 leaders of the sports industry by Kick It Out. And then since then, I've gone on to have experience within sport itself, predominantly in football. So I've been a scout for Exeter City for, I think this is my 5th season now. And then in the day-to-day capacity, I work as the head of communications for the Devon Cricket Foundation. So I've got a good understanding of sports in general and how it works. And I've been involved with the trust now for about 8 years, since I started with the working groups and worked my way up to the trust and to the club board. I think what I'm most looking forward, I mean, it's been an absolute privilege to have been not only selected by the members to serve on the trust board, but also by my fellow trustees that have the confidence in me to represent them on the club board and the fans on the club board. What I'm most excited about in my role is the club board role, and that getting that community engagement, like I said earlier, and replicating what other big clubs like Athletic Bilbao are doing in that engagement with the community. That's a huge part of what I really want to be able to do if the members vote me back in. In terms of the trust in my manifesto, I've said that the biggest area that I'm looking forward to is growing the membership, but not just the membership itself, but the contributions as well, and incentivizing increased contribution, not just asking people to invest more money, but actually giving them reasons to put more money into the club, whether that be it through further incentives to the membership structure itself, but then that's something that we need to engage with the membership with and get the feedback from there. So that's what I'd like to be able to do for the next 3 years. I'd appreciate if the membership believe that I'm the right person to have involved. And if not, then I'm very grateful for these 3 years. It's been an absolute honour and an absolute privilege to serve everyone.
Thank you. That's Julen. The next candidate to go through 2 minutes in the manifesto and final statement is Latoyah Egerton.
Sorry, I was on mute. So I am an extremely passionate Exeter City fan of both the men's and women's team. I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I can follow them both home and away. And I try and be involved and represent the club as best as I possibly can. I volunteer as a co-commentator for the women's matches at St James Park this season. And I provide valuable feedback in the supporters roundtables, and I've been on Radio Devon, Radio 1, 5 Live, kind of putting my point of view across as a fan of the club to kind of help promote it, I guess, to a wider national audience. I am also really passionate about equality within football. I work with Her Game Too and am the Exeter City ambassador, and I've been part of organising some dedicated fixture weekends to help kind of spread the message that sexism has no place in football. I have a background in communications and social media. I think this is something that I can really bring to the trust to help improve and build upon those communications that we've mentioned. I'm excited about the potential opportunity to bring my passion and experience to be a part of the trust for the club that I love. And I think the trust works best when you have a diverse and eclectic mix of people and experiences. So I would love to be considered to be a part of that as well.
Thank you, Latoyah Egerton. The manifesto and final statement of Pete Ferlie.
Thank you, Jed. It's been an honour and privilege to be a trustee of this great club for the last 3 years. I've been involved with the club, I suppose, over the last 20, 25 years. I've sponsored a match. I've been greasing the lion when they can't find anybody else. Not recommended on a hot August day, I can assure you. Been involved in the working group the last 3 years, developing the relationship with the club, the trust, and the greater Exeter community. And I believe that we have brought new friends into the club, and that has benefited the club enormously. I've taken on the mantle of running the fans forums the last sort of 12, 18 months. I'd like to carry on with that. We're planning on talking to all of the Exeter City family, not just the men's team. Got ladies team coming up. We'll do academy. We'll do CCT, so we can showcase the great work across the whole family. I also think it's now time for us to start looking forward. We've had as we know, the 20 years has been great, ups and downs. But now it's time for us to look forward, and so we can take the next step forward. We need to be a bit brave in how we do things. We need to maybe rethink how we do it. But as I said earlier, it's not at any cost. We have to do it the Exeter way, and if that does take one extra 1 or 2 seasons, then so be it. We can't throw away the good work that has been done by the people before us, and we wouldn't want to risk that at all. In terms of helping the club, we need to sort of look at how we can support them in developing extra talent, the talent that we might then be able to sell on and make our money that way. So give them the support for them to achieve that through helping with the academy as much as we can. And just to really echo, it's been a fantastic 3 years. When I've been on the board, been ups and downs, but it's been a real privilege, and it's been exciting. And I think we are in a really good place as a football team, both on and off the field, as I said before. And to be the only club in Football League One to make a profit, I think we should be all be proud of. That was last season, and it's going to be probably this season as well. And we should be really, really proud of that fact. And thank you for those who are attending tonight. Your attendance is much appreciated, and thank you for coming along.
Thank you, Pete Ferlie. The manifesto and final statement of Nick Edwards.
Thank you, Jed. Yeah, I've been coming up there I grew up 200 yards away, or 200 metres away from St James's Park, and been coming up for 55 years in the cowshed in the big bank. Not yet ready to sit down. My working life, I started at 16. I'm now at board level of a senior, a large rail freight company in the UK, work in the UK and France and Germany, managing multi-million-pound budgets and thousands of staff. So it's the last 3 years have been an absolute pleasure and an honour to represent the people around me who stand with me, because that's who we do it for. I do believe that we're in a position now where we're at the second stage. We've saved the club. The club is safe if we're not imprudent, but we need to safeguard it now and move on and make investments and be, I'd say, probably more grown up a little bit somewhere along the line. And we have to be sustainable. And that means also learning from other clubs, whether that be other football clubs or whatever, and about growing our sustainability away from the bank balance. But that's the most important one. We cannot do anything unless we're financially sound. And we have red lines. The CTA makes it quite clear. There are certain things that we cannot touch. The club is there. But we've got to be inventive, I think, because we can only grow if we increase income away from football, if we grow in the community, if we're prudent with investments, and we secure the future, because we're only guardians. We're only guardians of this magnificent club. I've never supported anybody else. I wouldn't want to. Never got a Premier League team or anything like that. So, and it is been a fantastic journey. We've got promotion in the last 3 years. We've owned property in the last 3 years, but we now need to move on, I think. And within the way Exeter City do things, we cannot. I know I keep talking about going back 20 years, but we cannot do that, and it's all too easy to slip back. But to be top of the league in footballing terms and in financial management makes me hugely proud to have been part of that. And everybody around this club should be proud of what we do. We should be really, really proud of Exeter City Football Club. And thanks to everyone for listening to my drivel tonight. But it's been an honour to serve, and hopefully it will be an honour to carry on serving. Thanks, Jed.
Thank you, Nick. And the manifesto and final statement from Josh Curtis-Hale.
Yeah, thank you, Jed. So yeah, I think like everyone else, I've been a fan of Exeter for a very long time. I think my first game, I was aged 6, back in the sort of late 90s, early 2000 era, which wasn't the best moment to start, but you know, I stuck with it, and it's dividends have paid off more recently. But yeah, I've always been interested in sport off the pitch as well as on it. I did my work experience in year 10 with the marketing department at Exeter. Helped to set up a youth supporters team when I was 16 that sadly now defunct, and went on to study sports marketing at university as well. I used to really enjoy going to the work parties, both at the Cat and Fiddle and at St James's Park, and I've always just wanted to be involved more than just sort of be a spectator, but actively bring something to the table. And obviously, over the past few years, I've built up my skill set in terms of my work. I'm a senior program manager for a large educational company. So I've had a lot of experience in terms of communication, marketing, general sort of administrative partner management kind of areas. There's a lot I do in my spare time as well. I'm very into running and help to run the website for that. Do some other volunteering with a refugee support company. So I've just always in my life wanted to do more and give what I can to help the club I love. I think what the others have mentioned as well is, it's more than 20 years since the trust started, since the trust took over, and it's been an incredible journey. But I think in many ways we are at a bit of a crossroads. We've talked a bit about Sky Sports, but we're in a league with Birmingham, the amount of money they're throwing at it, and I think we have to be very creative to be able to continue to succeed. We've talked a bit about the championship, but at times last season it looked like we wouldn't be in League One, and I think that should remain the priority. So yeah, I'm just very passionate about the club, the team, what we can achieve. I've got some big ideas, but also what's taught me is that we also need people who can get things done, people that can implement those ideas, and I believe I can be one of those people. So yeah, really enjoyed given the opportunity to speak to everyone and hearing other people's thoughts, and I hope everyone uses their vote when it comes to it.
Thank you, Josh, Curtis-Hale, and that does conclude our trust election hustings for 2024. Remember, Tony Badcock just said, and echoed by some of the members on the staff, thank you to all the candidates for their honest answers this afternoon, and congratulations for putting yourselves forward into this position, and we look forward to the election which will come. So thank you for joining us on the Trust Hustings. Thank you to all the members for joining today. I will pass over to Dean Matthews now, who will take you through all the administrative stuff.
Yeah, that's a rock and roll introduction if I've ever had one. Just to thank you all for attending. Firstly, it's run over by 10 minutes, so I'll take that because I know board meetings, whoever gets on, run over more than 10 minutes. So that's to look forward to. Voting will open this evening. Links will be sent round. As with any IT system, give it a few hours, although hopefully don't email me at midnight saying it hasn't come. But over the next few days, if you don't receive an email, do get in touch. But links will be sent, and voting will be open until Friday midday next week, day before the AGM, which is on Saturday at Exeter Phoenix, 10:30 off the top of my head, but please do check the emails that have come round for the correct time. I've been on 3 different devices, so I believe I've recorded this, and it will go online. But obviously give us a bit of time just to check that everything's all okay. And it will go to all members to view back if they so wish. Like I say, thank you again for attending. I won't take any more of your time. Good luck to all candidates, and I'm sure we'll all be in touch over the next 10 days. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Dean.
you all. Thanks,
Thank you all.
Dean.
Good luck, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All good?
I think so.
You can stop recording now. Otherwise, I'll leave this in.